Welcome to the Module 1 Introduction. Let's hear from your colleagues, Amy Nipper, a first-year instructor, and Marquita McCrimmon, a veteran instructor.
I started full-time teaching last spring, so in the midst of all the COVID chaos. So I quickly had to learn how to shift content online. So that's kind of my year of experience learning how to make everything functional for the online learner, how to get my students the content that they need.
I am Marquita McCrimmon. I'm the department chair for Justice Studies here at CCCC. So I teach in the Criminal Justice Department. I've been here maybe about 14 years, I believe. I think about 14 years.
When you consider your initial experiences designing courses, what were some of your biggest challenges?
The biggest thing is, where do I even start? I picked up the textbook and I call it a mistake, but it's not really a mistake depending on your course. But I went and I had them work through the chapter, but I found using that way they kind of got lost in the content and they forgot to focus on the actual topics that I was looking for instead of kind of understanding big picture of things. So that was one of the biggest drawbacks for that.
So it was like they didn't know exactly what they were supposed to be focusing on. They just kind of went through and did everything.
Wow. The biggest challenge I think I faced was the objectives for the course, the learning outcomes, looking at those, and then trying to incorporate activities that address those particular outcomes. I guess we'll think more on alignment. I think that was the biggest challenge. Now that I look back and reflect, they were so broad in terms of the assignments that I was incorporating into the course. The challenge was I didn't quite know, I didn't have enough experience to understand it needed to be kind of narrowed down in terms of the activities. Did it actually reflect the outcomes, not so much as that particular chapter, but for that course? So, with each course, you have expected learning outcomes for the student that they should achieve. I think what I was looking at more of taking the textbook, using that textbook, and just building a course. And sometimes that got to be challenging because I found myself just putting in activities, just building a course. Some of the courses that I looked at as a model had just had modules, like maybe 7 or 8 modules for that particular course. And so I'm thinking, am I supposed to build a course that kind of reflect maybe what this course looked like in another department? And so it was challenging because first I was new as an instructor and was still learning pretty much how to teach and what to teach. So on top of that, I had to figure out how to teach in the classroom, what to teach, but then also how to build an online course as well.
Now that you learned about backward design and identifying learning outcomes first, what advantage does backwards design give you during the development process?
So now, as I am working on, I have some content, I'm trying to improve it. My first thing, even before I go to release new content, is to start out with, these are the learning objectives. This is what I want the student to focus on. Kind of pinpointing exactly what I want them to know, and then making assignments, planning assignments that fit along with exactly how I'm going to test them, or how they are going to, at the end of that module, actually show me that they understand that content. That's the big piece that I use now. So by starting with that learning objective piece, it helps me keep the content kind of concise and organized. Whereas before, I would find like, oh, this is a cool worksheet, but it would kind of pull them away from focusing on the big topic that I actually wanted them to. They got lost on the details of the worksheet versus the topic. By starting with that objective, for example, like with my A&P classes, when I want them to be able to label the parts, the anatomy of the heart, giving them the appropriate labeling exercise to match that learning objective to actually be able to identify the parts of the heart, that helps a lot.
The biggest advantage that I think the students accomplish what they need to in terms of the course, what they're going to get out of the course. So I go back now and look at first the course objectives for that particular, if it's CJC 111, what are the course objectives for that particular course? What should students learn? What should they be able to take away once they complete that particular course? So I start there. And then I kind of break it down, starting maybe with the first objective. And I kind of start looking at how I'm going to organize that particular objective in terms of if it's a module, I start with that first. And then I kind of do my research. So if it's three objectives, I start with the first. And I kind of, because the one time I was getting overwhelmed when I was trying to just do it all at one time. But if I would break it down and focus on that first objective, because usually that first objective builds up to the other two or three. So I will work on the first one, kind of do my research, but I made sure that I focus on that particular objective. And I would build my activities based on that objective. And that keeps me focused. Before, I think I was just putting assignments in there and I wasn't relating it back to the learning outcome.